Dial it in and check the station. They talk about the U.S. inflation. I understand just a little. No comprende, it's a riddle. Awesome. All right. Well, my friends, Kimosabes, amigos, amigosabes, and comradres, let's get to it. And we got some nasty stuff. I'll introduce it, and then let's get some comments from you. We're going to talk economics before we close things off. Some very key stuff. And I really want to recommend, although I'm not going to be able to play it all tonight, the latest video of the libertarian angle of Jacob Hornberger and Richard Ebeling from the Future of Freedom Foundation. It was phenomenal. I want to play a little bit, and I've referenced it inside the news notes for the Genetically Superior subscribers at my Substack, of course. But let's get into some of the harsh stories about the immigration police state. And over at the news notes, you'll see immigration police state, another death of a kidnapping victim in the hands of ICE. Geraldo Lunas Campos, a 55-year-old Cuban immigrant and U.S. resident, died in ICE custody on January 3rd at Camp East Montana, an ICE detention facility at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. Now, you might have heard about this. I think it was the New York Times or Washington Post put this out with a very big story explaining that the injuries to this man seem consistent with him being asphyxiated by the guards. A preliminary autopsy indicates the cause of death as asphyxia due to neck and chest compression, and it's expected to be ruled a homicide. Witnesses, including a fellow detainee, reported seeing ICE guards choke and pin him during an altercation after he resisted being moved to a segregation unit without his medications. Now, let me just mention this. Anybody remember, of course, from early days on about American Revolutionary history, the Boston Massacre, right? Crispus Attucks, name lives on in American history, right? How many Crispus Attuckses are they going to have at the hands of this new tyrannical empire before people start to realize they cannot get normalcy bias here? Something's going to have to happen to use the passive voice, not the active voice, intentionally. And if we were to use the active voice, in other words, people are going to have to act. And unfortunately, I think that's what Donald Trump wants. Now, some people who are conspiracy-minded say, yes, he was put there to do this. Others might say this was the direction in which everything was going to go anyway. I'm of the latter. But I also think that there are opportunists. There are people with political patronage who know that there are others with political patronage who don't know, and they can use them. They can use people who are parasitic off of the state to drive the state towards areas more rapidly where the state naturally is going to go anyway. And once they establish those monetary links, say building detention facilities, employing people like Tom Homan or Pam Bondi with Geo Corporation. There's another news story. We'll talk about that if we have time, or otherwise we'll do it on Monday. The corruption is so rife. It's unbelievable, right? Now, the opportunists there, many of those people might not know the grander scheme that some people might say is behind it all. But either way, like I say, ascribing all of this to only a handful of nefarious, multi-generational bad guys, I think dismisses the opportunity to learn about political economics, history, and philosophy, and the ideas that anarchism can provide to people if they understand anarchism, which is that the tendency is it is going to go in this direction. From the minute they start a polis, it's going to go this way. And they just use different excuses. Well, it's your government. It's you. It's the royal we. It's not the royalty anymore. You're part of the royalty now. Really? Well, that other person also is too. So now we're going to be fighting each other. Yes, you are. So we can see that philosophically, some people buy into this. Other people know that people are going to buy into it, and then they game the system for themselves. Other people want the system game for them. They don't understand that they're part of a larger scheme to increase the size and scope of government. But like I said, you don't need the scheme for generations to see this happen. It's going to happen. You can remove names and faces from it all, the players behind it, because the philosophy goes in that direction. So here it is, another person dead. Now, that appears to be, I think, 4 or 5 over the past 45 days, and I think it's now 11 or 12 over the past year. I'll double check on that. And there's a very interesting article about this, just to give you some information from a man at the Cato Institute has written about this. So we'll get into this in just a minute, but here's a little more. Witnesses, including a fellow detainee, reported seeing ICE guards choke and pin him during an altercation after he resisted being moved to a segregation unit without his medications. He shouldn't have been apprehended in the first place. Whom was he harming? No one. Who were the aggressors? ICE. ICE initially claimed staff observed him in distress and attempted to save him, but accounts differ, with some suggesting it was portrayed as a suicide attempt. This comes amid broader scrutiny of ICE operations, including other recent deaths, but this case specifically matches the description of choking asphyxiation. So you'll see this over here, and this is from the ACLU. ACLU renews calls for closure of Camp East, Montana, following reports that detained immigrant was choked to death by ICE officer. Geraldo Lunas Campos, 55, is a father. Family lost their father because of ICE. Well, he shouldn't have been here. Really? Are you going to keep saying that? Because it's kind of stupid. You're not stupid, right? I know you're not. If you have neighbors who say it, just ask them, hey, I will give you a week. Find the word immigration in the Constitution. If you can, I'll give you dinner. That's a nice, friendly way to do it, right? And the Liberian man who was kidnapped by ICE, we mentioned, taken out of his house. Well, we discussed that last night. Well, guess what? He was released based on a judge's order early today. And then guess what ICE just did? That's right. They re-kidnapped him. Yeah, they did it. Yeah, boy, it must be a wonderful life to be messed with by the government. After Garrison Gibson was released by ICE from ICE custody overnight, federal agents rearrested him today, according to his attorney. Gibson was asked to return to Whipple Federal Building for a check-in and has now been re-detained hours after the federal judge ordered his release. Awesome. Great. Then there's this. CNN put together a video of Kristi Noem claiming ICE officers are highly trained and skilled. That's how I guess you get asphyxiation inside the halls of the prison. I mean, the detention center. They must have. It's paved with gold. It's got shag carpeting and beanbag chairs. It's a lovely place for you to be caged. And then, of course, here it is. So let's check this one out. This is a lovely little video clip. You can put this on your American Top 40, right, Kristi?
The officers that we have out there are very highly trained and skilled, specific for the operations that they're doing. They're utilizing the most gifted individuals on these operations to go out and to do enforcement, because many times if they're going after murderers.
There you go. They're going after murderers. I think what she means is they're walking after murderers who might have exited the ICE vehicles before them. That might be what they're saying. And of course, a woman who was caught on video getting forcibly pulled from a vehicle. Remember with the 2 Bowie knives, one guy cutting her seatbelt, and she was disabled. She was trying to get to the doctor's office and she couldn't go the way she wanted to go. She's like, I want to go that way. Yeah, she is now speaking up. ABC is reporting. She says she feels lucky to be alive. Yeah, there you go. And I don't know how much more it's going to cost us when the government has to pay off a lot of settlements for these people. But there you go. There she is. And yeah, I think that explains it. I would probably be feeling the same way. And there's this, man, why are you asking me for my papers, ICE agent? Because of your accent. Oh, there you go. Of course. That's perfect. Yeah, here we are. This is America. As David Bowie said, I'm afraid of Americans.
Yes, you are required to.
Where are you safe?
Look, sir, you're going to do this the easy way, or are we going to take you in?
You cannot take me in.
Yes,
I'm
I
in
can.
my private.
Yes, I can.
Do
you have documentation?
I do have my
Can
documentation.
you present it to me,
Why are
please?
you asking me for my paperwork?
Because of your accent.
You have an accent too.
Where were you born, sir?
Where were you born at?
Put your hands behind your back. Yes, you are required to.
Where is safe?
Unbelievable. It's just incredible. So, there are so many of these things that, at a certain point, in order to manage this properly and manage the lifestyle of reporting on these things, you have to have a sense to say, okay, I'm going to have to cut this off because I could just keep going and going and going on this writing. And I think David experiences the same thing where you literally might not even leave the house because there's so much stuff constantly popping up like new fungus on a fallen log. Well, I want to give you this one. Make sure I give you this one about the 6-month-old. I thought he was a toddler. He was 6 months old. The one who had cardiac arrest after they fired tear gas canisters into the vehicle. Well, it happened in Minnesota, and here's a little more information. A Minnesota family says 3 of their children, including a 6-month-old, were transported to the hospital after federal agents reportedly fired tear gas on their vehicles. Here we go.
We're learning more about another dangerous incident involving ICE. A family says 3 of their children, including a 6-month-old, were hospitalized after agents reportedly fired tear gas at their vehicle. Destiny Jackson says they were on their way home from a basketball game when gas grenades set off the airbags, trapping them inside as gas filled the car. After people nearby helped open the doors, she says they realized their infant had stopped breathing. Destiny says she had to perform CPR to revive her own child.
Me getting my baby, having to get my baby like mouth to mouth. I thought I was dying, honestly. And the way I felt, I could imagine how my kids felt because I'm a full-blown grown adult. I just knew that it was even worse for them.
And late Thursday night, a federal judge in Minnesota ordered the release of a Liberian man 4 days after heavily armed agents were seen using a battering ram to enter his home. The judge said in his ruling that his Fourth Amendment rights against unlawful search and seizure were violated. Garrison Gibson was in his home with his wife and 9-year-old daughter when he was arrested. He's being held at an immigration center, according to the Associated Press.
So remember, they released him, and then they got him to go to a facility, an immigration meeting, and they rearrested him. So that way they could avoid the Fourth Amendment problems. Now, remember how we reported on those 4 Sioux, the Oglala Sioux Indians? They're members of an Indian tribe, which is supposed to be a separate Indian nation, and they were kidnapped. One of them's been released, and I did some checking. They don't know where the other 3 guys are. And as I mentioned, don't forget that the president, the guy named Starr, comes out. He's still speaking up about this. It's weird to be in a pocket here in New Hampshire when I'm thinking about what's going on in Minnesota, all those lives, all those people living their lives over there with the temperature of the air, their daily getting up in the mornings, all the things that they got going on and what you've got going on. And I can't imagine having your life disrupted like this, thinking that it might be disrupted like this. No wonder they're not getting people going to the farms, right? Well, here's the Indian tribe story with the folks on the reservation who've had, again, the irony of people connected with the United States government, which supplanted most of the Indian tribes and stole their land. Now, of course, telling the Indians that they don't belong. It's just incredible. They're somehow the invaders. Of course, I've got here on the 4 Sioux men kidnapped by ICE in Minnesota. As of today, January 16th, the latest available information indicates that one of the 4 Oglala Sioux tribe members detained during the ICE operations in Minneapolis has been released. The remaining 3 are still considered missing or unaccounted for by tribal leaders and advocates. This just breaks my heart. I can't even imagine. It's just crazy. It's just nuts. And I know some people wonder, like a guy like Dave, always reporting on this terrible stuff. And, people, they ask, how do you keep doing it or whatever? And, for me, it's communicating with you, connecting with you, hoping to build something bigger, get those principles out there, occasionally going into the educational stuff on economics and history and real scholarship to do respect for those guys as we're bringing in the dynamics of the breaking stories, that sort of stuff, and the punk rock and everything, and then hopefully getting the fiction out. That's always great. Well, I want to give you a little bit more information about what the tribal leaders are doing. Don't forget the tribe president's name is Frank Starr comes out, and they have an attorney named Chase Iron Eyes. And they accessed the Fort Snelling Whipple Federal Building on January 15th, and they were informed that the three men weren't there. So now there's confusion about the current location of these guys. They might have been moved out of state. They don't know if they're outside the country. They don't know where they are. The men they were homeless guys. They were unhoused U.S. citizens, and of course, didn't have any constitutional protections whatsoever. They had them taken away. The situation remains fluid, as I wrote, and calls for their immediate release, with the ACLU class action lawsuit alleging rights violations during the broader Minneapolis raids and widespread criticism for the operations. So Mercado Media has this. Attorney Chase Iron Eyes spoke today. So here we go.
Anybody's game, goddammit, that looks
And
like
one of them has been released, but they couldn't locate the other three. So the council members here, they're all elected officials of the Oglala Sioux tribe, and they gained access to the facility, and they couldn't find their three tribal members. They're not. They claim that they're not classifying them by their nationality, which tribal members are also citizens of the United States since 1924. You know, there's nobody more American than American Indians, but they were unable to find them here today, and so they're going to continue on. They got some contact information. They love the fact that you're here, that everybody's here, and they're going to be giving out tribal IDs to their tribal members who are in Minneapolis, St. Paul, at the American Indian Center down on Franklin Avenue.
They got to have IDs on to show that they're members of the friggin' tribe. And what Russell Means would be doing right now? It's just out of control. It's, you know, it's almost like, I don't know if you get the same vibe. I want to go over and show some of your quotes as we close this off. We'll talk about the economy in a second, but think about this. You know, I'm wondering if you're getting a sense that every day you think it can't get any crazier, and it's getting crazier, right? It's ramping up the chaos and absolute insanity. So I want to give you this. This comes from Lakota Man. He says, now the Department of Homeland Security is using the three Lakota men that ICE has incarcerated as bargaining hostages in order to coerce tribal members. Check this out. In order to coerce tribal leaders into making a so-called deal. A deal for what? I smell a rat. This has DHS Secretary KKK Risti Noem's nefarious name written all over it. Quote, we will not enter an agreement that would authorize or make it easier for ICE or Homeland Security to come onto our tribal homeland to arrest or detain our tribal members. So you see what ICE is figuring out? I think you get it. They know that if people start thinking, I got to get away from ICE, and I come from, say, Guatemala, and I was admitted here as part of the parole program, but they're going to end the parole program, and I don't want to get sent back to Guatemala. I know I'm in North Dakota, I'm in Minnesota, I'm in South Dakota, right? I'll go to one of the Indian tribal lands, the Lakota Nation. I'll ask for sanctuary there. That's what ICE is trying to stop. 100%. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Frank Starr comes out. You are 100% right, dude. That's what's going on. He's the tribal president of the Oglala Sioux in Minnesota. 100% right. This has got to be what they're planning, right? Let me go over to you and ask about your comments, everybody. See what you have to say. Let's check it out and say hi to everybody. And thankfully, we haven't got any of those weird ads on YouTube. And let's say hi. If I've missed some of your comments, feel free to repost them. Welcome to Nazi America. Wear your gold star. Oh, who said that? Angelo, 1999. Brother, thank you. Thank you, man. So right. Oh, no, Billy Jack again. I met the guy who played Billy Jack. He ran for president in like 92. And he knew his martial arts. He was an interesting dude. Let's see also. We've got, says pilgrims would have starved if it was not for them. Yeah, we know that Squanto helped out a lot, showing them how to plant with the fish heads and stuff like that. Really, the starvation thing, and I know you probably know this, I token know things, but the starvation thing came as they changed away from communal property, as the record shows in the notes of the Plymouth plantation. I also want to just mention that compliance doesn't protect you. In this video, ICE agents pull up to a vehicle and immediately demand the driver's ID. And I'll just show you this one. There's a lot of swearing in this one, but the guy makes great points. He's like, why are you pulling me over? I've got my ID. Take your hands off the window. Do that. What are you doing to me? And they just hassle him. Hassle him. Two guys in the car in Minneapolis on the 15th yesterday. So they're trying to get to work. It's nuts. Yeah, I know people who, when I worked at radio stations, the guy would go along this particular path early in the morning. There was always a cop and he always hassled them. It's like, dude, there's nobody. It's like 4 a.m. I see you. I go by you every day. What do you think I'm doing? I'm going to work. Just insane. Okay. Let's take another quick break and listen to some music. Now, everybody, it's time for us to talk economics because, as we mentioned yesterday, the throttling of the migrants is having an effect. And, of course, the MAGA people don't want to face up to reality that labor is part of the expense chain for businesses. And when you restrict labor, you're going to get higher costs, which is going to be bad for the economy. It's sort of like, tying one arm behind you and making you have to work with somebody else when you shouldn't have to.